Started right away. So welcome to our Northeast and North Central regional meeting. Cassie and I are happy to welcome everybody. This is kind of our second year doing this and hope that next spring we can be back together in Appleton or Green Bay or Shawano or wherever it is we decide to be next spring. We have a very full, quick agenda, so I want to get right to our presenter. The nice thing about being virtual is that we can be national and international. So we have with us today Autumn Burton, who is from Literacy Kansas City. I heard Autumn speak at the COABE conference last summer and felt like what she talked about last summer spoke to what you all were asking for at our regional meeting. So we invited her to come, and here she is. So I'm going to pass it right over to you, Autumn.
Thanks, Anna, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you all, and I am going to share my screen and jump right into my presentation. Alrighty. So I'm hoping that you all can see my slideshow, and if anyone can't, I just appreciate you just holler at me. And then Anna, if you could just help me keep an eye on the chat. If you guys have any questions throughout my presentation, feel free to just put them in the chat. Anna, if you don't mind doing that, I'd really appreciate it.
No problem.
Great. So my presentation today is Discovering Leadership Within Your Learning Community. And I'm coming to you from Kansas City, Missouri. Literacy KC has been around for about, over 30 years. And we have just grown and grown and grown over the past 5 years or so. And we offer a variety of programming for adults, from reading foundations to high school equivalency, English language learning, remedial classes at all the local community colleges, as well as a variety of workforce development certificate programs and college and career pathway counseling for students. But today I'm going to be discussing how we weave and empower student leadership by providing opportunities for student leadership in areas of instruction, service, storytelling, and fundraising, which ultimately helps us increase our recruitment and retention. At Literacy KC, our vision is literacy for all. And our approach is that we believe literacy skills are not an indicator of intelligence. Our approach is to honor students' journeys, knowledge, and strengths while helping them reach their goals. Each semester, staff, tutors, volunteers, and instructors build a collaborative learning environment where our adult students expand their reading, writing, math, and computer skills. And this personalized approach, which is a collaborative environment where students are empowered to use their voices, allows students to shape their own instruction that's delivered. And we deliver a balanced curriculum leading to improved literacy and life skills for our students. So first I'm going to talk about developing leadership through students' academic journey. We do this through our instructional content, culturally responsive teaching, opportunities for expression through critical analysis, developing a growth mindset within our students, and public recognition, specifically our Leading the Way law. So now I'm going to talk about learning strategies and critical thinking. We not only encourage learning academic skills at Literacy KC, but instructors teach students about learning strategies that can be used beyond the classroom and into their everyday lives. In the classroom, students are taught how to dissect news articles, paraphrase content, and make informed choices and opinions, both written and spoken. Students are then encouraged to present those opinions for open discussion. We also encourage a growth mindset, encouraging students to view their abilities from a growth perspective. So this means that we often hear students say things like, wow, this is a really hard math concept, but if I keep trying, I know I can do it, rather than, I'm just no good at math. There's no way I'm ever gonna figure this out. Our classroom model is also very intentional. Our classroom model is teacher-led, tutor-supported, and student-centered. And that means that our teacher leads the entire class, but then we have volunteer tutors working side by side with our students to help individualize instruction for each person. The intention there is that students have the specialized attention and differentiation that they need through special attention from the tutor or the instructor, so that they don't fall through the cracks like they likely did in their K through 12 experience. We also offer stratified courses offered at a variety of levels within all of our programming, so that students are placed with learners at a similar level that they're at. And this allows us to bring the leadership and social community out differently than you would see from a multi-level classroom. In our higher level classes, and with the help of tutors, students are often asked to self-correct their work. And this empowers them in several ways. First, students see their progress from one lesson to the next, and they get to see the growth of their own skill set. Second, through the process of self-correcting, they're able to clarify what they don't know rather than someone telling them what they don't know or need to learn. Third, the process affirms that they are adult learners with dignity. And finally, it shares the power with the student and creates possibility for learning and leadership. And then finally, our instructional content. Our teachers and volunteers focus on leading by role modeling. Instructors often select reading materials that are both fiction and non-fictional, and biographical stories of great leaders, which cross cultural, ethnic, and national divides. And this empowers students in many ways. Students can compare their journeys to the journey of others and identify their own strengths and challenges through introspection. And students are introduced to a diverse set of characteristics that make a person a leader. One of the things that this intentional instruction allows students to do is to start breaking down the stigma that comes along with being a low literate adult. So we know that many of our students come to us feeling like they have been hiding their literacy skills from others their entire life, and they often feel incredibly defeated. But by bringing in these levels of intentional instruction, our students start to see there's many people like them, and their literacy skills are not an indicator of their intelligence level. So once that stigma is broken down, the embarrassment falls, and students begin to feel comfortable sharing their journey with others. So not only the people here at Literacy KC, but also those in their neighborhood and their family. And they're able to say, hey, I didn't have it before, but look at me now, I've got it. Next, one of our very favorite things at Literacy KC is celebrating the big and small achievements. Each semester, our teachers sit down one-on-one with each of their students, and they talk through the goals each of those students are working through. Oftentimes, these goals are set in areas of civic growth, workforce, familial, and digital growth. The teachers write down the goals along with the student, and they work on action steps. What needs to happen this semester in order for you to reach this goal? The teacher also works with the student by checking in throughout the semester to see if they're reaching those action steps. So by learning the student's goal, the instructor has the opportunity to get to know the student a little bit more, and then they can connect lessons to the student's interests and dreams. For example, instructors capture goals personal to each student and then present strategies for how their goal can be attained during class lessons. It also helps them identify additional goals that they may not have thought about, but end up thinking, yeah, you know what, I guess I do want to do that after all. One of the questions I've seen many students consider after we present it to them is, you know, even opening your own business or doing something entrepreneurial someday, or getting a raise. Oftentimes students don't necessarily put themselves in that mindset. Then when they think about it, they're like, yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. I'd like to try that. So another thing that we do at Literacy KC is to recognize students who may not have reached their in-term goals, right? For many of our students coming in, it might take them a long time to get that workforce credential, to get their citizenship, to get their high school equivalency. But we want there to be milestones along the way that we can recognize and celebrate to help students continue to be engaged and persist in their class. So in the bottom right, you can see a picture of one of our classes standing in front of what we call our Leading the Way wall. And this is just one way that we recognize some of those smaller achievements as well as the big achievements. So we recognize and highlight success on this wall in 4 areas. The first one is showing up, is what we call it, but essentially it's attendance. So students who have at least 85% attendance for the month, they are posted on this wall. And I tell you, that is one of the most exciting things for our students. At the beginning of every month, we have to be religious about getting it up, or else they will let us know it's not done, because they come downstairs to this Leading the Way wall and they will search for their name. And if it's not on there and they think it should be, they'll certainly let us know. Another area we recognize is what we call academic excellence. Now, this isn't necessarily the academic excellence of, oh, congratulations, you just passed another high-set test. Because we want to focus on students who are making strides and showing growth and personal autonomy. So one of my favorite examples is one of our dear students, Josh, who he is an adult who came to us years ago and has a developmental delay. And when Josh started coming to Literacy KC, he would only walk in with a caseworker. His head was down. He would not participate in the class. He appeared pretty uncomfortable. But over the years, Josh has slowly, put his shoulders back and his head up. He's gotten to know our staff, and he walks in completely by himself. He says hello to anyone that's here. He often shows off his Chiefs jersey, and we'll talk about the most recent sports game in the area. And he'll even participate in class by socializing with his peers, as well as answering questions. So Josh is a perfect example of someone that we would recognize in this area as developing academic excellence. And again, whenever we get a chance to put a student's name on the wall, that's also a chance for us to celebrate them in the class and with their family as well. Then we have two bigger achievements on this wall, one that we call moving up. And moving up stands for any student who has moved from one level of a course to the next level of a course through their academic gains. For some students, that may take a month or a semester, and for others, that may take a year or two. And then finally, we have a credentials recognition for students who have made it all the way to their completion goal at Literacy KC. Folks who have graduated with their high school equivalency, earned a workforce development certificate, gotten a citizenship, etc. So those are all ways that we recognize students in big and small ways. And through recognizing the milestones along their journey, students are encouraged to stick with it, and they get excited about coming back to class, even though it's going to be a long journey for some of them. Next is leadership through service. I'll talk about our Student Advisory Council, our Student Needs Committee, student advocacy, as well as how our students lead within the community. So our Student Advisory Council is one of my absolute favorite parts about working at Literacy KC. And it consists of a group of student leaders who help inform and promote a positive community experience at Literacy KC. Students involved in the Advisory Council gain confidence in being part of a community that values their worth. And we found that students learn more effectively when they can trust that their feedback is valued and considered in administrative decisions. So this group meets typically on a monthly basis, and it offers students a platform to express their opinions about instructors, the classroom, learning environment, schedules, events, and more. This group also takes action on community issues by addressing concerns that matter to them, such as the bus routes and how we can work scheduling around those, outside resources that may lend itself to addressing student needs. And it also allows them to become more self-confident and willing to take on leadership roles outside of this advisory council. For example, one of the things this group recently did, I shouldn't say recently, with COVID, it seems like time has just shrunk, right? But before COVID hit, the group invited someone from a voting agency in the area, and they had that person come in and teach students the value of voting and offer opportunities for students to become registered to vote. Additionally, this group has helped to bring in different agencies that inform the student body about college and career opportunities, about different benefit opportunities like the SNAP program, for example. So they're really engaged in helping bring the student body into a more informed place. They also help with retention and recruitment, and they've come up with some really interesting strategies that as a staff, I don't think we would have ever even considered. So And this again is before COVID, but we will be bringing them back soon because a huge portion of our student body and our staff body is vaccinated at this point. But they implemented what they call a Bring a Friend to School Day. So each semester we have an opportunity for our students to bring friends or family members with them who are interested in learning more about Literacy KC, but may not be ready to really take that plunge and enroll in a class. And so during this time, new people get to tour our space, hear student speakers talk about how Literacy KC's helped them reach their goals. They get to meet other students, instructors, and staff within the program and have any questions about Literacy KC answered. And of course, we always had food, which was a nice draw as well. But that was always a really fun initiative that did end up getting more students in our doors. Another thing that they decided they wanted to do is that they thought there needed to be more student representative in our new student orientation. So our goal is to have someone from our Student Advisory Council come into each of our orientation sessions to give a quick spiel about what it's like to be a student at Literacy KC and to be a friendly face that says, hey, I know this is hard. I know that this is scary. I did it, and so can you. And then they've also assigned each class an ambassador. And this person is responsible to welcome new students into the class and to kind of take newer people under their wing to catch them up on maybe what they missed if they're coming in halfway through the semester or after a few weeks in the semester, to answer questions they may be too shy to ask in front of the entire class, and just, you know, be a friendly face that they know that they can come back to, because we recognize that sometimes students will go through the entire orientation process, they'll jump into a class, they'll attend 1 or 2 days, and then they're gone. And we never could quite figure out, why did they leave? And this is one piece that helps with that persistence of those new students, because then they have someone that they might be able to express some concerns that they're having. All right, student celebrations. I told you we like to celebrate at Literacy KC. And each semester we have a celebration with the entire student body to celebrate all the hard work it took in having a successful semester. It's a time to honor students, volunteers, instructors, and staff, and our Student Advisory Council takes the lead in planning, implementing, and cleaning up after this event. The entire student body participates in a nomination process and votes to recognize and give a gift to a tutor and a teacher who went above and beyond that semester. At the event, each student's also given a certificate to recognize their class participation. And you can see students holding up their certificate in the pictures I have here on this slide. These certificates students will take home, they'll frame, they'll put on their fridge, they'll post on Facebook. I didn't recognize how important that was until I came to Literacy KC and just saw the pride that they had from getting an achievement like that focused on their academic journey. Now, in typical times, this event usually consists of good food, certificates and awards, games and prizes through like bingo. We have music and lively interaction, and it's definitely one of our favorite days of the semester. We unfortunately haven't been able to do a lot of student celebrations because of COVID, but we do have plans to implement those starting in May, June, and July of this year in a more socially distanced type of atmosphere. So not only does this help us with retention, because again, we're recognizing those milestones along the way, and that keeps students' self-motivation up. But it's also an opportunity for recruitment because we welcome students to bring their family and friends along. And it's often a really nice first touch point for students to get to know the staff and other student body at Literacy KC and see that not only do we learn, but we also have a lot of fun. So unfortunately, it is not all rainbows and unicorns, as many of you know. And I know at Literacy KC, as well as probably many of the programs that you work with, our students face a lot of challenges that might keep them from being successful in class. So we have a few ways that we help those students take control of their challenges. And one of those is through our Student Needs Committee. The Student Needs Committee is intended to take away barriers that lend to student truancy and keep students from flourishing and becoming the leaders some of them were intended to be. So this group offers many grants to students in need for things like digital devices, eyeglasses, hearing aids, transportation support, and more. We also have a student advocate on staff who acts as maybe a social worker or a case manager type of person. And that advocate works with students to connect them with resources that will help them take control of some of the challenges that they're facing. Because we know some of the challenges our students face are ongoing or urgent, and they don't fit in with the mini grant requirements of the Student Needs Committee. So this person is responsible for sponsoring really strong referral partnerships with agencies in the community to help with things like childcare support, housing support, utility assistance, health management, and so on. This person's also responsible for managing our food pantry, which we host in our student lounge. The lounge is intended to be a place of social gathering for our students before and after class. And the pantry has, you can actually see in the bottom right corner, a sampling of some of what we offer. We have snacks that students can eat before or after class to help their brains prepare to learn, as well as some shelf-stable items students can take home to help supplement meal times. In the top right corner, you'll see a couple of folks, one of them holding a big box of coats, and that's because this position is also responsible for hosting a coat and hat drive during the the colder months of the year, because many of our students don't have the adequate clothing that they need to be comfortable walking to the bus stop, getting on the bus, and coming to school. So we found that if we can help bundle them up, they're going to be more likely to come to class during the winter time.
Autumn, someone wrote a question, where do you get the funding for the snacks or the food pantry?
That's a great question. We partner with an agency called Harvesters, and they're affiliated with Feeding America. And they are one of the largest food pantries in the area. Since we're a partner agency of theirs, we can order food through them at an incredibly discounted rate, oftentimes even free. And we just have to be selective about what we pick and choose. There's more expensive things that we can get and less expensive things. We don't have a huge budget for our food pantry, but it is a line item within our annual budget that we fundraise for. So it's just about being, being crafty with the funds that we do have. All right. So moving on to new experiences, an important aspect of leadership through service is that many students take the skills and experiences they've had at Literacy KC and they enrich their loved ones and their community with their learnings. So whether it's voting for the first time, becoming a citizen, visiting a museum for the first time, which you can see in the bottom right picture, or setting an example for their children by graduating, our students are often the first in their families and communities to do some of these things. So through their exposure and experiences, they continue to build up and encourage those around them, emphasizing their leadership by empowering their community. And this also, again, goes back to retention and recruitment, because as students see these things happening, these first experiences happening, people who have heard about Literacy KC and thought about going think, okay, people are actually reaching their goals, maybe I'll try it out. And we find that that's a way that we get new students in the door, or a way that we keep students and encourage them, or they feel the self-motivation to keep going and working toward their goal as well. All right, next I'll talk about leadership in storytelling and fundraising, and we'll focus on students, how students write and share their own stories, how we continue to celebrate those successes, and focus on empowerment as well. So we know that power is in storytelling, and our students are empowered to tell their stories in a variety of ways and venues at Literacy KC. Students are part of Literacy KC's open houses, where we give tours and share about the impact of our program with community members and prospective students. And students not only share their experience during this time, but they also participate in a panel, and they do a Q&A with staff members, really becoming spokespeople for Literacy KC. In classes, students also write stories in the form of poetry, nonfiction, and memoirs. And each year we publish those in an annual anthology, as well as a literary newsletter that gets distributed to funders, community members, students, and prospective students to help highlight the learnings and the growth of our students over the past year. Students are also invited to tell their story at fundraising events throughout the year, one of which generates at least an audience of 500. As a result, students get experience public speaking and it takes a lot of courage to do that. In addition to their personal stories, they're also invited to read writings that they've done in the classroom. Student stories of success are featured in our marketing videos that Literacy KC uses to raise money and recruit new students. And student stories help promote confidence and integrity in our students. One of our major focuses is to value all backgrounds and really emphasize that Literacy KC, that literacy skills are not an indicator of intelligence, and our focus is to honor students' journey, knowledge, and strength anytime we're putting students' work or student stories on a platform to be shared with others. So an example of a student's work that could be published or read at an event is A.J. Jenkins' poem, "I Am Who I Am." And it reads, I am a beautiful woman that speaks her mind. I am a beautiful, I'm sorry, let me start over, everyone. I had a bit of an interruption there. I am a beautiful woman that speaks her mind. I am a Black woman. I am a powerful Black woman. I am a woman who knows her worth. I am smarter than I think. I am somebody's daughter. I am more than just my color. I am who I am. And then next, I'd like to show you a video that we use to inform people about Literacy KC, whether they be prospective students or community members, that really honors the student journey and the work that they've done at Literacy KC. And this story, or this video, highlights a move we made to a new location at, you all might not know the area, I'm assuming, but we are actually now at about the second busiest bus stop in Kansas City, at a very local hub for many of our students. And we moved in 2018. So I am going to play this video for you now.
I've been here going on, it's gonna be my 4th year, and I'm just so excited. Everything, I looked in here, it's like, wow, I can't believe it's the same building. When my mama and us walked in here when we was little, and it used to be the clothing store, and then it was 2 clothing stores. Then it used to be the post office, and it's like, wow, this is my life. I'm so excited, I'm in a daze. It's like, wow, I'm back here again. But it's something beautiful, something excited, and everybody comes a part of literature. And I feel so good because they're a part of me and you. We all is one family. And I'm so happy to know that it's constantly growing and growing and growing. And I'm not the only one learning. I'm learning to not only read, write, I'm learning to communicate with each other and feel happy and know how to open up my mouth when something, and don't feel bad when you don't know anything. You can always go and talk to the teachers here, the tutors here, because they make you feel so loved. And this is the best place to come. So I'm telling everybody all over the world, don't hide what's behind. Learn how to open up and share and watch your life will change. Be a challenge like me. I needed help bad, and I wanted to do something with my life. She said, I know there's somewhere we really can help you, and we can place you there, and you can do it for free. And I said, huh? I couldn't believe it. I broke down and cried. I was so happy. It's scary when you first started because it's something new. But once you get to it, you're gonna love it. I'm learning to read better, write better. That's my goal. And keep reading books. I'm reading. They give you so many books, you ain't even gotta worry about it. And learning the computer. I never did a computer before. I'm learning how to speak. I used to stutter. I was real shy. But I'm not shy anymore. You can tell that through the camera.
What a great opportunity for us.
Yeah,
Praise the Lord.
That's why my grandkids.
Moving to the new KC Literacy is a blessing that we got that spot, because now I can get there quicker and still can have time and do what I want to do and stuff. So now it would take me about 20 to 25 minutes to get to school. I love it, and it's a good spot. It's a wonderful spot. I learned more about myself. I learned more about challenging myself and knowing that I can do it. Instead of putting myself down and saying I can't do it, the teachers taught me, yes, you can. And I'm doing it, and I'm keep on doing it until I get it there across that stage. There's nobody never too old to get their education. Look at me, I'm a witness. You never too old.
So
Yeah.
right right here to the left is the first classroom.
Woo, that's pretty.
Then
Beautiful.
the second classroom.
Ooh, that is beautiful.
More staff.
Ain't that nice? Oh, this is awesome. This is beautiful. Yes, this is really awesome. I love literature, Kansas City, and I mean it from my heart. I came a long ways. If anybody know me and know how I was back then, they already know this is a different me. I'm a new person now.
I think I'll just stop sharing at this point because I can't seem to get us off that slide. And I have about 5 minutes left, and welcome you all to ask any questions that you might have.
Autumn, I just want to start with 2 questions. One is, how do students get on to the Student Advisory Council or Committee?
How do they what?
How do they get on to that committee?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we talk about the committee at orientation. We also go into classes to recruit students for the committee, and committee members recruit students. So it's just a really basic nomination process. We're looking for people who have good attendance, who are engaged in class, and who show leadership. And we look for a student or a teacher or a volunteer to recommend that person. And then we typically have monthly meetings. We offer monthly meetings at different times because we offer classes AM, afternoon, and PM for different adult schedules. So, you know, they also have to commit to attending those meetings, but that's pretty much the gist of it. There's not a huge process that they have to go through.
And then my other question is, who is on the Student Needs Committee?
So the Student Needs Committee consists of volunteers as well as staff members who take student need requests, and we evaluate those on a regular basis, essentially once they come in, to determine what we're able to fund and what we may be able to refer out to other agencies. So that at this point consists of about 5 or 6 volunteers, as well as my position, our student advocate position, as well as some other student services positions as well.
Thank you. Cassie.
Where do your student referrals come from?
That's a great question. We have a variety of ways that we get student referrals. Big way we get referrals is through community agencies throughout Kansas City, the metro area. So through our referral partnerships, people learn about Literacy KC and what we do, and they refer their clients to us. But I would say that our biggest recruitment tool and referral tool is actually word of mouth. It's students telling other students that they enjoy Literacy KC, they're reaching their goals with us, hey, you should try it too. We attend outreach events, job fairs, community events, things like that. But referrals and word of mouth are the biggest 2 pieces for us.
We have time for one more question, so you can put it in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand or just unmute yourself. I also want to point out that Autumn will be in the breakout session after this, in one of them. So if you have questions, you'll have a chance to talk to her more then. Are there any questions?
So I do see a question in the chat. For learners who are in tutoring and not in a class, what are some of your ideas for giving them opportunities to meet other learners if they desire? So I'm understanding that you all probably have some programs that are more tutor-based than classroom-based like ours, and we've been through that process as well. I would recommend like the student celebration type thing that we talked about, or that I showed you, where the end of each semester we have a big event for students to come in, invite their friends, families, tutors, and staff and instructors join. That would probably be a really nice first touch point. That would be embracing accomplishments and celebration that you could probably get all of your constituencies into, and then build it up from there into maybe some of the more student advocacy, student advisory council type stuff. I find that whenever we have opportunities to celebrate and good food and that type of thing, that's a great entry point for a lot of students to gain comfort engaging socially with the student body.
Great. Thank you so much, Autumn, for presenting.
So I'd like to thank everybody for coming and attending this portion of our afternoon meeting. This is going to be all about learning a little bit more about our Native students and how to serve them and how to really understand where they're coming from so that we can best support them in their educational journey. And I guess from here, I'd like to start off with a story. That's how the people usually do it. So this is a story about a grandmother pine. So a long time ago, there was a big forest, and in the forest there was a great drought, and it went on for many, many years, and the forest was very sickly. It was not flourishing, dying, and there was a really large pine, a tall grandmother pine, who stood above the forest, watched over everything, oversaw, and she was a teacher. And because she was so tall, she could see a long way off, and she saw some fire in the distance, and with her whole being, her roots and her branches, she knew that there was danger in the distance, and she did her best to try to save everything around her, the plants, the animals. All the animals were running away, and she knew that there was something bad coming. And sure enough, a forest fire came through and destroyed a lot of the forest, and she lost a lot, almost all of her family. And almost all that was left was just her in the middle of this vast devastation. And she was tall, still tall, and she could fight the flames. Her bark was singed a little bit, and her leaves were a little scorched, but she survived. And she was sad. She was very sad that she was left, and she felt responsible, and she cried and cried and cried for days. It was very, very sad. And her cries didn't go unheard. They, way off in the distance, the wind carried them off to the Creator. And when he heard her cries, he decided that he was going to do something about that. So along came the wind and carried the seed down. The seed went down right into the soil next to her. And right around the springtime, this time of year, the little seedling popped out. Amongst all that black earth and devastation, this little piece of green came out, and grandmother pine looked down, and she was so happy. And she nourished that little tree with her deep roots. She pulled the water up, and she helped to feed him, and he felt safe and protected. And because he felt safe and protected and loved, he had a chance to grow. And he grew up tall, and his roots grew deep and his branches grew wide, and each year he grew a little bit more. And he felt safe and he was able to learn. And so grandmother taught him lots of lessons. She imparted knowledge onto him. He was just little. And, you know, the forest was regrowing. The animals were starting to come back after the Great Fire. And grandmother Pine was a little afraid of the animals that were coming back. So when she saw the animals, she would bash her branches together and startle the animals. They weren't afraid, but they knew that she was a little upset and she wanted to protect her little grandson. And when the hot sun beat down and it felt like the grandson's leaves were going to burn right up, grandmother would cover him with her branches. And he would feel strong and safe and protected again. And he continued to grow, grew up a little taller, branches grew out a little further, roots grew down a little farther, and he felt safe and protected and continued to learn. And grandmother continued her lessons with him. And when the north wind would come again, and grandson would feel like he was just about to snap right in half, grandmother would reach out and with her big branches, and she would hold him and support him, and he would feel safe and protected. And she continued to impart her knowledge, and it took a long, long time. Many years, many generations for all of us. And the grandson grew taller and taller every day. And he really learned everything that the grandmother taught him about the things in the forest. And sometimes he felt a little lonely and a little sad. Happens to all of us. And grandmother knew, and she knew he was sad, and she would call out to the birds, and they would come and rest on her branches. And they would sing to him. And he would feel happy again and safe and loved and protected. It was just what he needed to grow and continue and take on more of the lessons that grandmother had to teach him. Now, this went on for many years, like I was saying, and grandson was standing real tall, and he knew the forest, he knew the animals, he knew what it took to grow and survive and support each other. And he and grandmother stood right next to each other. And as he grew bigger, he started to take on some of the things that the grandmother had done as she matured. And there did come a time when grandmother Pine started to feel like her time was coming, and she wouldn't be able to pull the water up to support her grandson. And she was feeling older and frailer, and she turned to her grandson and she told him, "Grandson, it's close to my time, and I won't be long for this earth." And the grandson looked up at his grandmother and said, "It's okay, grandmother, because I'll be the one to pull the water up from the earth with my roots and to help feed you. And I'll be the one to help you take care of all the plants and the animals around us. And I'll be the one to scare away the animals. And I'll be the one to Call the birds when you're sad. And when the sun is beating down and your leaves are getting scorched, I'll be the one to shade you with my big branches. And when that cold north wind comes and you feel like you're going to snap in half, I'll protect you and I will hold you up. That's a story that I share that came from one of my people, and he said it came from a man named Johnny Moses from all the way up far up north, and women were responsible for carrying the stories. The stories traveled with them before the settlers came, and I'm so happy to be able to reclaim my responsibility and my right to share stories and to pass those on. And I think that this story actually has a really good lesson for us as educators. And I thought that it would teach us a little something today and give us a little bit of insight. Like I said in the beginning, stories are really important for our culture, and they contain the knowledge that's been passed down for generations and generations, and all the way back to our ancient ancestors. And they have helped us to survive, and they continue to guide Native Americans to the future. And as I told this story, I guess, and you listened and you heard, I'm wondering if anybody had any thoughts as it relates to the context of our teaching, and whether it's Native American students or non-Native students. And I'd appreciate if anybody would share.
Julie, what I took from that is, what came to mind is the pay it forward concept. You know, the grandmother was there to nurture and support her grandson and teach him what she knew. And it's his responsibility and privilege to go forward and pass on, you know, what he has learned. So it's just, I forget what that expression is, one teach the other one. I forget, that's not exactly how it goes, but that's what I took from it.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else like
Julie?
to share any thoughts?
Julie, this is Colleen. Thank you very much for your lovely story. I appreciate it. Because it was about a tree, and a tree as a teacher and nurturer, it reminds me of a Chinese story where the teacher is also represented as a tree, in this case a cherry blossom tree. And the reminder at the end of that is that the cherry blossom tree is strong and nourishes the cherry blossoms, but when the wind takes the blossoms, the teacher doesn't necessarily know all that those blossoms will do. So for grandson Pine, he's learned all of grandmother's lessons, but he may go and do things even beyond what grandmother fathomed.
That's really neat. Thanks for sharing that story. Anybody else have any thoughts? Otherwise, I'd like to share a little bit of some of my reflection as I learned this story and tried to apply it to my work with students. The story was about a lifelong journey, and you know that grandson learned all the way throughout his lifetime. And I like that concept because, you know, when we have students come to us in all different seasons of their life, they they've learned a lot, even though they're coming to us because they need to learn something else. And it's good to know and to apply that story to our lifelong journey as educators and as students. The story honors that lifelong journey, and like someone else was saying, you know, no matter what season in life, our first job is to create a safe environment. Grandmother Pine created a safe environment for growth, and she fed him. So you know, for as far as a safe environment for growth, you know, we want to establish relationships with our students so that they feel comfortable enough to step out of their comfort zone and learn something new. And when we feed them, when we pull the water up from the roots and feed them, we're giving them tools for success. And like the story of the cherry blossom, we try to focus on, you know, the generations from the past that are pushing us along, and what we need to do in order to focus on the next generations ourselves. So I think that you know, we can all learn when we share our stories, and they don't have to be traditional stories. They can be contemporary. They can be personal or family. And when we grow and share, or when we share, we learn more about each other. So in the context of Indian education, what we would like those working in contemporary education to know about Native students about Native Americans, is that we've always been here. And the key questions that we would like you to ask are, you know, how long have the people in this area where we live, how long have they been here? And that opens up a conversation about indigenous populations and who lived here originally, and who came because they needed a new place to live. We'd like you to ask questions about the land. Who resided on the land that we stand on now? Who are the people that were here when the settlers came to the Wisconsin area? And I guess we'd just like you to be open and ask questions about our culture, and feel it, go with a mind of an open mind and wanting to learn. And, you know, no question or no issue is too difficult for us to talk about, because we feel, especially Indian educators, that those are always opportunities to learn. You know, for example, there's quite a few issues that Native American educators want to make sure that others who want to learn more and teach more about Wisconsin Native American history, sovereignty, and culture is to talk about sovereignty. What does sovereignty mean? And basically, if I were to explain what Native American sovereignty means, it just is, it's the right to self-govern. And that is very important to every Native nation in the state of Wisconsin. And they want everyone to understand what sovereignty means to them. They want everybody to understand that that Native Americans have always been stewards of the land, and that is a big part of our worldview. So, and we also, another big issue is the issue of mascots, and that's something that's a little bit more contemporary, but these are all current and traditional issues and aspects of Native American life that really connect to what they're learning. It's in their DNA, I guess you should say. And I understand that we also have some resources that I'd like to share a little bit about. Was everybody able to get a copy of Native People of Wisconsin?
It did go out to everybody in the Northeast, North Central region,
Okay.
Julie.
Right.
It's possible that we have some people on the call that joined from our tech college partners and from other programs across the state. So there might be a few people, but each program in the Northeast, North Central did get copies of those books.
Those are really good resources to educate about the 11 tribes, federally recognized tribes in the state of Wisconsin, 12 state recognized tribes, including the Brothertown Indian Nation of Wisconsin. And each section talks about goes through the history, pre-contact to contact, post-contact, and contemporary. And it's just an excellent resource that is used across the state in the Native American Studies education for high schools, or for K through 12 students. And one thing that I do want to remember to point out is the best resource out there for Native American education in the state of Wisconsin is called, where did I put it? theways.org. And that's got some really, really great videos of exemplary programs throughout the state, whether it's in language acquisition, immersion, culture, and there's also a way to get there through the DPI website. So once you go to the DPI website, you can search Native American education, and it will point you to all the resources that educators around the state go to and use consistently in order to get the knowledge out there about Wisconsin Indian history, culture, and sovereignty. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Anna. There's a wonderful video on there. Well, actually about 6 or 7 of them. And if I knew a little bit more about Zoom, I'd share the one about one of the educators in our community named Ron Korn Jr., who set out to teach his daughter Menominee language as a first language. And when you get a chance, hop on that website and look around at some of those videos. They're inspiring, and they will be very educational and insightful as far as what is happening in Indian education for all age levels in our state. And an interesting statistic that I came across as I was doing some research is that not all states across the country have a statewide curriculum that teachers can access that will teach K through 12 students about their state's Native tribal histories, sovereignty, and cultures. And Wisconsin is one of, I believe, 8 states across the country. And very fortunate in that we have a wonderful resource person at the state level. His name is David O'Connor, and he's been with the DPI for many years. He's an award-winning professional in the area of Indian education, and very approachable, very accessible. If anyone ever needs to contact him, he's available by email or telephone on the DPI's website as well. He's actually responsible for quite a bit of the progress that has taken place, along with the Wisconsin Indian Education Association, which he is a liaison for. Wisconsin Indian Education Association is the premier agency of the state, made up of Indian educators and others, non-native alike, yes, that do their best to work toward actually reducing the achievement gap for Native American students in education. And they work throughout the state, and they are affiliated with the National Indian Education Association as well. And they have a board, which I was an alternate member of up until recently. And they have a wonderful conference that happens every year where you can learn all about what's happening in Indian education. Anna, you're pretty slick over there in Zoom land. Thank you for sharing that stuff. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Anything they'd like to share? Does anybody have any Native students that they are working with, or Native families? And any insights into your personal work?
I have a question. Would David be a good resource for picture books for parents and children to read together that feature stories that would resonate with Native American Wisconsin groups?
Absolutely.
So these are like kids under 6, under 5. So this is calling on your Head Start and early Head Start experiences. He would, yes. I should contact him?
Yeah, he would actually be, he is a vessel, a virtual fountain of information. And he has all those personal connections with different representatives in the school districts who are working on cultural curriculum, and has actually been involved in quite a few of those projects as a facilitator and a consultant. And he would be able to point you right to the sources within each Native community, actually. Trying to think if I have anything else. I guess to review, or to maybe sort of wrap it up before we have any other questions. Indian education is always such a balance, because culture and language is so important to everybody, to Native Americans, and it's always a balance between culture and between and healing. And culture actually brings healing, so we have found it to be very important to, as we move through contemporary education, to really keep a grasp on the past and keep a grasp on the knowledge and the lessons from the past. And the one thing that, as an Indigenous educator, I would like people to just understand is, what I'm what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create hope and heart for the people that I work with, regardless of what season in life they're in and where they're coming from, what place they're coming from. I want others to be able to see what I see the hope in these students and see their heart and where it's coming from, and to help share that knowledge with others so that when you do work with Native students, you can understand the importance of their connection with their culture and their traditions, and how that serves not only as lessons for them, but it also serves as healing. I've seen that in my own life. I was a child born in the 60s. There we go. It's my birthday. I was born in 1964 on this day. And my mom was a part of the generation. She grew up in the 50s. She came of age in the 50s, and her tribe was terminated at that time. She moved away from the reservation because the reservation no longer was. And there was a lot of poverty. There was not a lot of opportunity, and she moved away to the neighboring community and raised myself and my siblings, her family, in the neighboring community. And I sort of, even though I was close to my tribe and my reservation, I didn't really know a lot of my family. I didn't know my culture. I didn't know my language. And it was all basically done for a purpose. And when you think about it was pretty successful, although I'm doing things to change it. You know, it was a process of elimination, more or less. And what I'm doing in my current life is trying to learn more about the stories, learn about the language, use the language every day, and share that with my children, because I feel like I am part of that generation that was almost lost to its own culture. And so it's wonderful to be able to be in the position that I'm in, to be a teacher, but also to be a student of the culture and of the language, and being in a position where I'm able to grow and learn and heal as an educator from some of the past trauma of my people, and whether it's personal or whether it's tribal. So doing what I can in this generation to reconnect what my grandma knew and what she didn't teach to my mom, and then what my mom didn't teach to me, and now I'm learning and I'm going to teach to the generations coming up, and to my children, my adult children. They have a thirst for it and a need for it, and it's probably something that they didn't even know until it was introduced and produced a hunger in them and in me. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate being able to share all that and a little bit of my personal story on my birthday.
So Julie, the grandmother tree was your grandmother who saw, I mean, this is just my take on this, but that the forest fire destroyed so much, and so much of your culture was destroyed and eliminated. But now you're like the little grandson tree coming up and relearning everything, and will become the grandmother tree who's going to protect this next generation coming up.
Yes. Oh, thank you for sharing.
Wow. Can I ask one question? And I'm sorry if this is, you mentioned about culture and language. And with it, I think for me, sometimes I'm never sure what language to use, what words to use. I mean, I hear, Indian, Indigenous, Native American, First Nation. Is it, do I stress over that when I shouldn't? Or how do we know?
Yeah.
To be culturally sensitive,
Yeah.
what language to use?
I think
What words
those are all still appropriate.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We as Native Americans are always, still using the word Indian, and people, everybody from different ages, walks of life, different generations will use different terminology, I guess you'd say. So as mature as I am, I've seen it come full circle, and I use all of them. Mm-hmm. And when I see in academic works and in any conferences or events that I attend, all of those terms are used interchangeably.
Okay.
If you hear First Nations of Wisconsin, those are also terms that we like to hear, because it does help everybody to understand that that we were, the Menominees especially, were here 10, 12,000 years ago, and we are known as the Kayash Machitoak, which means the ancient ones. And that's what the other tribes, when they traveled, or when they resided amongst us, that's what they called us. They didn't call us the people of the wild rice. They called us the ancient ones.
Mm. Wow.
Because we were here before everybody else
Wow.
knew.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Julie? We have her for a few minutes yet, and this is a great chance for you to pick her brain a little bit. And
I would just like to say I really appreciate you sharing your story and sort of tirelessly promoting your culture, even when there were times when people didn't appreciate it. And I think it's like very in vogue to like be appreciative and do it right now. And I hope it lasts. And I want people to respect and celebrate everything that you're putting out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate having a built-in audience to be able to share my story. And I do have to say, in all honesty, it was the first time that I've shared a story. So I don't know. It's like a birthday gift to myself.
Hopefully not the last time. You did great.
yes.
Yeah, it's a good story, and I feel like it does really apply to so many different aspects of life, whether we're educators or students or just people on our journey.
Great. Anyone else?
I have a question, but I'm trying not to be leading in my question. Trying to think of how to phrase it. So I'm just, Julie, what's your thoughts on, you've asked if any of the programs are working with Native American students, but I think that even if they aren't, or they don't realize that they are, that there's still a real importance in incorporating Native American stories into the curriculum, or what you're using for teaching materials, or insisting that the books that you have diverse cultures represented. So I guess what would you say to that? Like, I don't know how to, I don't know how to phrase the question, but you see what I'm getting at? You know,
are you speaking to the aspect of culturally appropriate literature and tools and materials used for teaching?
I guess I'm saying, like, what significance does it have for us to choose materials that we're using with our learners that represent Native cultures as well?
That's very significant, and I think that it kind of almost relates to the contemporary issue that we have with the mascots. We just, Native Americans just want to be represented as people, and when there are sources out there that are inappropriate, that give an incorrect image, that just kind of serves to snowball the stereotypes. And so it is really important to access the resources that you know are going to be authentic and culturally appropriate. And the best place to go for that is the firstnations.org, I think it's firstnations.org, or the WIEA.net, which is the Wisconsin Indian Education Association. They are the source in Wisconsin for culturally appropriate information on Wisconsin Indian tribal history, culture, sovereignty. And they will have all the latest and greatest resources that are culturally appropriate for Indian education. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you for my statement.
Added to your thought.
Yes, thank you.
Good. All right. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to ask Julie about?
So as people are thinking, I just want to mention that we will be sending out email to everybody who attended this afternoon, and there will be links to things that she mentioned in her session, things that were mentioned in the breakout rooms and in the first session today. And there is a real brief survey that we'd like everybody to complete. If you've attended anything this year, you've seen it before. It's very, very quick. So we'd like everybody to fill that out as well.
Okay. All right.
Wanted to say thank you, Julie. This is Heather from Fox Valley Literacy, and my camera is having a mind of its own today. But thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sorry, I think I missed most of your presentation. But I wanted to ask, and if you already covered this, sorry again, but at our events in the past, we've done a land acknowledgement, but haven't been able to very authentically do more than that. And it feels remiss to not do a land acknowledgement, but also it's very superficial. And recently we haven't, I don't think in the last 2 years, we have Native or Indigenous students who self-identified. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on just that dynamic and how to kind of be ethical, and especially during events, and honoring that, there are lots of Native people here, but we're not serving them currently. And that was a rambling question, but
I'm really glad you brought that up, and I I think that any land acknowledgement is completely appropriate, whether, oh, first of all, does everybody understand what a land acknowledgement is? Okay, so what happens at events in Indian country is someone will get up before or during the introductory remarks and acknowledge that, for example, we are the land that we're currently having our conference at is original Menominee homeland. And then just it goes on to acknowledge that, as well as a little bit of the history and sort of like a thank you to the people for their hospitality, I guess you'd say. So that's what a land acknowledgement is, and it's like I said, if you can get anybody to do that, that's good. And Native American students, I'm sure, would step up to the plate and help you, facilitate that. So you're doing good. And I know it might feel remiss, or it might feel like it's just not enough, but and it's a dynamic that continues to change. But what you're doing is right on the mark as far as I'm concerned, and I'm glad I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Okay, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. It is 3 o'clock, so thank you all for coming this afternoon and sharing. It's great to see so many programs represented, and let's hope next year we're in, like I said, Green Bay, Appleton, Shawano. Y'all can fight it out. And so we hope to meet again soon. So thank you all, and look for that email either today or tomorrow morning.